Hey guys and girls, so welcome, and today we're going to be looking at a old piece of technology, the Commodore 64. One of the old, probably the oldest computer I own at the moment. Dug it out the garage, set it up the other day. Now what I wanted to talk to you about today is this thing. It's the user manual for the Commodore 64. Now I want you to think back, this is a console that is around 34 years old. Kids would have begged their parents for this and pleaded, just like the Xbox One, just like the PS4. They would have wanted this technology in the home to play the games on. Now, when you bought this, it didn't come necessarily with this thing, which is a cassette player. Okay, and you would want to buy the cassette player because it would come with these cassettes. Lots and lots of different games. I've got quite a few. This one's Star Wars. We've got I've got Robocop. You know, some of the old classics. And you'd want this. You'd really nag and whinge for this at Christmas or birthdays. And it wasn't cheap. And what I want to talk to you about really is what's inside this, because what is inside this may shock you. So those of you who are studying computer science at the moment and Python and things like that, stay tuned, because we're going to boot up, power on. This manual shocked me a little bit because I never really used the Commodore as a kid. The first old console I had was the Atari 2600 JR, and you know, I never really came across the Commodore. So when I actually dug this out, and I was given it by a friend, and looked at the manual, it just shocked me. Because inside the manual, there's the basics, what you would expect, you know, connecting up your console, how to format a disc and things like that. But then there was a chapter, writing simple programs in BASIC. And it covers quite a lot of the fundamentals of computer programming, some of the things and concepts that we learn on a daily basis at the moment in the classroom. So for instance, writing print statements, if statements, selection, iteration. So it just shocked me slightly that the fundamentals of what we're learning, or what you guys are learning and girls are learning on a daily basis. You know, kids 30 odd years ago wanted to participate in. They literally would pick up the manual and learn to program and create their own games and create their own things. And we're going to show you some of this because I think you're going to recognize some of the code and some of the stuff that we can get this to do. So if you bear with me, we're going to zoom in on the screen. Okay, I could emulate this on the PC, but where's the fun in that? So let's lock that in, and then, okay, so we're going to start off with a very simple print statement. And to do that, we're going to do something you may recognise, which is print hello world. So exactly like we would in Python, and hit enter. And you can see there that it's run and returned that. We can also do calculations. So we can do print 12 plus 12, 24. If we make a mistake, we get a syntax error. So very, very common things that you will be familiar with. We can do the calculations that you would do today. So for instance, 3 divided by 7. Okay, timesing would be the same. So some of the things that you're doing and you learn, some of the very first things you learn in Python, kids were doing 34 years ago. at home on the Commodore 64. We could do exponentiation. We could do 12 to the 5, 12 to the 5. Okay, so let's have a look at some loops. So we'll start off with a very simple loop that uses the print function. There's a shortcut in BASIC to do a print function. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clear the screen. So shift and clear. Now this, as you saw before, we were almost in interactive mode. This has put it into sort of a scripting mode, or shell. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in line numbers. So 1, 0 would be line 1. And we're going to use the shortcut for print, which is the question mark. So the question mark is print, essentially. And we're going to print Commodore 64. And close that speech mark and then hit return. And you can see it hasn't run the code, it hasn't run the print command. We can then put in our second line, which will be 20 or 20. And we're going to type go to 10. And that's it. This is a very simple print command that will iterate, that will loop. So to run it, we'll just type run and we will press return. And you can see there that it's just copying Commodore over and over again. And what I'll do is I'll stop this by pressing run stop on the keyboard, and I'll type in list, and this will recall our program from memory. Okay, and then we go print Commodore 64, 20 go to 10. So what it's doing is on line 1 it's printing the word Commodore 64, and then on line 2 it's going back and doing line 1 again. So it's an iteration, it's a loop that will continuously keep going until obviously it receives a break in the line number. If you were to put in two different, if you were writing your program and you were to do line 1, and you were to do print hello, and then again you were to do line 1 and then print hello 1, for instance, and then we'll run that. We can see that it has just skipped, it's just literally skipped the first line 1. So you had to remember, you had to get your line numbers right and accurate for your program to work. So I'm just going to power it down. It's the quickest way to clear it in my opinion. But what you might be familiar with for and next loops, or for count loops, and we can do one of those very quickly. So we can do, let's go back into our scripting mode, and we'll do line 1, and we'll do for CT, which is count, for count equals 1 to 4. And then on line 2 we can do, we'll print, and we'll use the shortcut print, open speech marks, Commodore 64. Close those speech marks. And then on line 3, we'll just do next count. And obviously what that will do is it should print Commodore 4 times. So if we return, we can go run, and assuming we haven't got any syntax errors, there we go. We can iterate through a count from 1 to 4, which is pretty cool. Some of you have done while loops and counts and for loops, so you should be familiar with that concept. So the last thing I'm going to show you before I just go over a couple of other things that I want to make you aware of is if statements. So let's create another program, line 1, and we'll do a equals 0. So the current value in the variable, we'll create a variable called a, will equal it to 0. On line 2, we will do if a is less than or equal to 8, then go to line 4, which should be 40. On line 30 we'll do end. Okay, and then on line 4 we will do print Frodo lives, comma A. Okay, so Frodo being a reference to Frodo Baggins, quite big in the 80s, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. So let's go down and we'll do 50. A equals A plus 2. And then on line 6 we'll do go to line 2. And then I think we're good to go. So let's just have a quick look at the program. So line 1, we set the variable a equal to 0. On line 2, if a is less than or equal to 8, then go to line 4. So if it's less than 8, it will go to line 4 and print Frodo lives value of a. It will then set a equal to a plus 2 and go back to line 2 to check if a is less than or equal to 8 again. So if we run this, there we go. Frodo lives 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and when it hits 8 it stops because we've told it on line 3 to end the program. So there we go. So why did I want to show you this? Essentially the fundamentals that you're learning on a daily basis are what kids aspired to do for fun 30 plus years ago. If you look through the manual, and I'll put a link below in the description of where you can get a digital copy of the manual, you will notice in the manual there is a lot of computing fundamentals. So for instance, binary to decimal conversion. If we have a look, you might recognize this, how to draw images, some simple animation stuff, and it progresses on throughout the user guide on how to make sound and also how to create some simple games. Now, one of these you might actually recognize, so I'll just pop it up here, and it's a guessing game using random numbers. So generating random numbers and asking the user if it's higher or lower, so on and so forth. Okay. And you can guess, and kids would sit there and they would make this, and it was cool. For the time it was really exciting and fun, and it still is today. When you're actually able to create a program in Python, think about how you feel. So it's reassuring for me to know that the basics and the fundamentals of computer science remain essentially, and programming remain the same. So 34 years ago kids were learning what you're learning today, and what you're learning today will stand the test of time. It will put you in really good stead for the future and for whatever career path you choose within computer science or any field. And even if you are studying computer science and don't go on to do it for a career, the skills you're learning and the computational ideas and computational thinking behind what you're doing is gonna be useful for you. It is a really cool skill to know. So that's all well and good. Let's just finish off by doing a bit of gaming, and we'll load a game. And the reason I'm going to load a game up for you is just so as you can see the load speed. And I'm going to go for one of my favourite cartoons as a kid, Defenders of the Earth. And we'll have a go and see if we can get it to load. Playable on most cassettes. You put the cassette in and power it up, power up the Commodore, rewind the tape, make sure it was right at the beginning, and that could always take a little bit of time. Alright, okay, the tape's rewound, the cassette's rewound, so we can hit shift and run, and it says load, press play on the tape. We'll press play and it will go into a sort of loading mode, and what's happening now is the tape is being played. The data from the tape is being stored into will be stored into memory. At the moment the Commodore is literally just searching and waiting to receive the signal from the cassette. So at the moment there's blank, there's nothing actually on the cassette at the moment. It's turning, and when it hits the data and the data starts to send, the Commodore should pop up telling us it's found the cassette. There we go, and it says it's found Defenders of the Earth. We don't have to do anything, all we have to do is wait. And there we go, so it's found Defenders again. There we go, tape's playing, loading the game into memory. And if you're curious to know how much memory the machine's got, it's in the name, the Commodore 64. And I can guarantee that's not gigs, or megs. So have a think about what that could be. In the next couple of videos I'll be showing you how to emulate the Commodore 64 on the PC and get some ROMs running and some games, and you can have a go at some of the things we've done today, such as the print statements and the iteration, a bit of selection. So at the moment it still hasn't quite loaded properly, it's still loading. We've got the artwork loaded. You can program your own coloured graphics, your own coloured animations on the Commodore 64. It did come with controllers. You could buy controllers. The cassette deck was replaced later on with disk drives, floppy disks, well, not floppy disks, but 5¼ inch disks. And for those of you who haven't seen a 5¼ inch floppy, it's one of those. So, and there was an interesting news article the other day that the American nuclear submarines and defense missile systems still operate off of this type of disc, which is a little bit unreal. But yeah, that's a 5¼ . Okay, so you can see we're still loading, so the load times on these games genuinely weren't the quickest. So that's probably about, I reckon, 4 minutes load time so far. You hear that little whirring in the background, that's the tape still playing. And there we go, hopefully. No, still loading. And that should be it, hopefully. No, So as you can see, as a kid, imagine yourself being a kid trying to play this game, waiting, anticipating it. You just got it for your birthday or Christmas. And you're just waiting and waiting. And obviously consoles are a lot quicker today, the Xbox One, PS4. But I mean, even when I bought the Xbox One on release day, it was I think the game I got with it was Rise, Soldier of Rome, or something along those lines. There we go. So yeah, Rise still took ages to load. And if we have a look, so you can see the type of graphics you got. So quite a long wait for game over. So there we go, that's it. Quick introduction to programming on the Commodore 64. The fact that, you know, the things you're learning will stand the test of time, and they are relevant. So hope you've enjoyed. Do hit that like button if you've found any of this interesting. Don't forget to comment if you've got any questions. Comment below. Check out the description for the link to the manual, and also remember to come join us for the next video on how to emulate the Commodore 64.